Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome back to Total Football Talk. So we're going to look at all the latest news coming out of Manchester United, and the only place to start with is Sir Jim Ratcliffe's interview, which is unbelievable. Maverick. I've called him a maverick in the past from some of the things that I think he's said and done. His honesty is almost reflected to me in Rubin Amorim's honesty. Some of the things that Sir Jim has come out with are unbelievable. Even the little bits where he talks about supporters and who's real and almost who's fake. I would put myself as I'm a supporter. I moved to Manchester because I loved the club. I came here because I wanted to kind of be around the area. I live back from Northern Ireland. I've moved over here to have a completely new life. And that was my reason. I've followed Manchester United all my life. My family all followed Manchester United. I'm a massive Manchester United supporter. But I can't get to many games now for various different reasons. But I would still call myself a proper supporter of this club. But what is a proper supporter? A proper supporter is anyone from around the world, international, national, local, doesn't matter. We're all proper supporters. But I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe has kind of labelled us all slightly. It's almost like we fall into different tiers of supporters. And that really annoyed me yesterday when I heard him talk about that. And there are other things he talks about. Obviously, he's a human shield, I think, human shield, well, yeah, maybe he is, for the Glazers. But there's a world of stuff to get into. So let's jump into some of the stories that have come out. And one of the Sir Jim has kind of talked about why he bought Manchester United, and he bought it because it's his boyhood club, and I believe I can sort it out. If I didn't do it, I wouldn't have kind of bought it. Is kind of Sir Jim's take on this. Where do you sit with this? Are you, after hearing this interview, if you haven't heard it, I'll go through some of the headlines and you can then start forming your own opinions. But what do you think? Do you think he is the right man to take us out of the shit that we're in? We're in trouble. I'll break down other bits that he goes into. He talks about money, cash flow, players. It's a fascinating interview. But it obviously, Gary Neville, I watched the overlap one. I've not really watched much of the other ones yet. So I'm only basing my information off that one. I think it's unbelievable, some of the things he's come out with. If he's a supporter of Manchester United, do you think that he understands the club like we do? Do you think he feels the pain? Do you think he's suffering? Like, he obviously talks about taking a lot of flack. I think he's taken a lot more flack than he ever thought he was going to get. And obviously, again, he's talked about putting in his own money, and that money's already disappeared, which is not surprising maybe to supporters, but he has kind of said he hasn't. They did their due diligence according to him, but they never really understood how big Manchester United was until they got into the kind of the crux of it, until they moved in and they've been in a year. And in the interview, he talks through the process of what they've kind of done in that year, the mistakes they've made with Eric Ten Hag and Dan Ashworth, etc. I've not really covered them too much from what I'm looking at, but it's all in there, and I think they understand. He understands that he's made mistakes, which is good, but I mean, these mistakes have been costly, and as I said, he's a shield for the Glazers, and it's really frustrating because I just think that he was asked directly by Gary Neville, who I think did a reasonable interview. I think in some areas he could have pushed some more. I think as he says, he answers the reason why he bought United is because he's a fan. But I suppose the real question is, why did he prop up the Glazers? Because was there interest from Qatar? Well, we believe so. Was that concrete? Who knows? I mean, there's a lot of kind of things that have come out. Qatar are going to sue because apparently their actual bid was legit, and people are saying it wasn't. And then Sir Jim Ratcliffe actually says in this interview, if I didn't think I could turn this around, I would just sell it to Qatar. So, which is it? Is it, you could sell it to Qatar, or, is it the bid wasn't, real? It's kind of, it's left very open on that one. But it's just mind blowing. But okay, so Sir Jim talks about running out of money at Manchester United, which was another big one, and this was part of the BBC one, which I've just kind of picked up on. And Manchester United would have run out of money at the end of the year, by the end of 2025, having put 300 million in to buy new players in the summer. We are in the process of changing it, and it's uncomfortable and it's disruptive, and I do sympathise with the fans. The simple answer is the club is running out of money. we'll run out of money at Christmas if we don't do the things that they're planning to do. So obviously what they're talking about there is they're talking about running out of money. They're talking about the club. I don't believe it'll actually run out of money. Kieran Maguire's done a piece on this before that they will, that they won't run out of money. Sir Jim's a billionaire. The Glazers obviously have money. I don't ever think that the club would have got to the complete financial crippling point, but I do believe that we're hemorrhaging money. There's talk about 300 million that's been kind of spent in various different places, and in terms of money brought back in over that same period, only 100 million of that has kind of been brought back in from sponsorship deals, shirt deals, and stadium revenue. And obviously, if you were to carry that on and you're losing 200 million every year, it is absolutely crippling for the club. So they've got to figure a way to turn that around. But that doesn't deflect from the fact that the reason why we're in the biggest, most important debt is because the Glazers have riddled this club with debt, and all they've done is serviced it to a certain degree, but they've never actually paid anything off. Now, Sir Jim Ratcliffe believes he's got a plan to pay it off and make United sustainable again. I can't wait to see how we do this, because there is the news coming out as well that there's going to be the new stadium, 100,000 seater stadium that's going to be rebuilt. In regards to not renovating Old Trafford, but a completely new stadium, and that's Sir Jim talks about 5 to 6 year plan to get this done. And obviously the surrounding area, which is probably the land that they own, is probably the land that they're going to sell, which will be developed upon, which is probably the money that will go into funding, I'd say, a good portion of the stadium. So I think that's how they're going to fund it. From my point of view, I'll be keeping a close eye on to see if that is actually the case. But just Sir Jim then goes on to talk about players. I'm going to run a little video here, and you can have your say on it.
Some are not good enough. Some probably are overpaid. We're buying Anthony. We're buying Casemiro. We're buying Onana. We're buying Højlund. We're buying Sancho. These are all things from the past, but whether we like it or not, we've inherited those things, or we have to sort that out. So. For Sancho, who now obviously plays for Chelsea and we pay half his wages, we're paying £17 million to buy in the summer. So it takes time for us to move away from the past into a new place in the future.
But are you saying that those players aren't good enough for United?
No, I'm not saying. I'm just saying that we've
overpaid, or what are you getting at there?
Well, some are not good enough. Some probably are overpaid. But for us to mould the squad that we are fully responsible for and accountable for will take time.
Okay, so Sir Jim is talking about players that have overpaid for and aren't good enough. Sancho, Casemiro, Anthony, Højlund. There is a lot of players, and now some of these players are still here, and some of these players have a massive game on Thursday night. And how are they going to feel after hearing their owner essentially saying that they're overpaid and that they're not good enough? I actually think it's going to be very detrimental to the players, unfortunately, because as I said, he's a maverick. He says what he thinks. Maybe that's the reason why he's done really well in business. And now maybe some of the supporters, maybe we all agree with him, but he's the owner of the club coming out slating these players. Now, how are these players going to respond on Thursday night, our biggest game of the season? The one game that we have to win? Are they going to come out and go, well, what's the point of playing for someone who doesn't give a rat's monkeys about us? Who cares? He doesn't care about us. So why should we care about him? Why should we care about this club? Now, I'm just hoping that these guys are professional enough and go out and still want to do it for the club and do it for us, the supporters, because hopefully that's what their desire and their will and their passion will come through, and that they'll go out there and give us a performance. And it's almost like, in a way, giving two fingers back up to Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the board, and just saying, do you know what? You might not think we're good enough, but we're going to go out there and prove you wrong. It may backfire. It may not work. They may go out there. They may not put in half the effort. And I remember working for ITV, and I remember sometimes being put in a difficult situation, and my attitude was always to come back out fighting and to go. I wanted to always prove people wrong, because sometimes life kind of falls down and it deals you a bit of a rough deal, and sometimes you've just got to pick those cards up, throw them up in the air, and get on with it. Make sure that you come back fighting harder. So I hope those players go out and fight for us on Thursday night, even after hearing those particular words in that interview. And then so this was just kind of Sir Jim Ratcliffe on breaking down the financials for Sancho. For Sancho, who now plays for Chelsea, and we pay half his wages. We're paying him 17. We are paying 17 million to buy him in the summer. We're going to pay 189 million this summer in players that we haven't signed. Even if we don't sign anyone in the summer, we'll have to write a check for 89 million pound. So 89 million pound is going to be spent this summer. Unfortunately, that's not money that's going into Rubin Amorim's pocket, into his war chest. That's actually just going to the players that we already owe money to, Jadon Sancho being one of them. It's very, very frustrating that we live in times where we have to cost cut to move forward, where Rubin Amorim won't get the players he needs, where money's being spent on players from previous regimes, that money's just being whittled away, whenever it really needs to be brought back in and sort of help to cover the sort of cock-ups that have been created by previous boards, and the neglect that's been shown to the Glazers showed neglect to the fans by allowing clowns to run the club, and unfortunately we are now suffering, as is Rubin. Sir Jim is behind Rubin. He actually goes on to say that he's very happy with what Rubin's doing about his current position, and which is brilliant. So that's good. But yeah, it's an absolute, it's a mess. Okay, guys. So the next bit Gary Neville talked about was Sir Jim Ratcliffe cutting money from former players. We don't look at the 40,000. Why don't you get Harry and Bruno to kind of run an event to raise the money? Essentially, is what Gary was saying there. Nobody suggested that to Sir Jim. Now, as a businessman, I could imagine he's not across everything. They do allude to that. It's a massive club. He can't make decisions. But does he need to rein in his staff like the Glazers did? The Glazers never reined in Woodward and Arnold and the rest of the shebang that made a complete mess of this club. Does he need to rein in his staff now and get them to stop making mistakes like this? Now, with the Alex Ferguson thing, Sir Jim, just on the back of money, cost cutting, money saving areas, Sir Jim sat with Sir Alex and essentially broke it down with him and said that the club was in financial ruin and that they had to cut his £2 million salary. And apparently, from what I've heard and what I've read, Sir Alex was a bit grumpy about it at the start, but then he took it on board and he fully understood the situation. And at least Sir Jim did that face to face, and Sir Alex did understand that had to be cut. I can imagine Sir Alex is a wealthy man, and maybe that money at this particular stage in his life, maybe it was funding something else, maybe it was funding the horses, who knows? But there's peace between them, and it's amicable anyway. So just that covers that little bit, which I thought was interesting. So, and then I talked about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the definition of a faithful supporter, and his take on this was faithful supporters are those who've got a season ticket and those that go to the game. And the faithful supporter is the guy who's got a season ticket and he goes to not just the top 6 games, but he goes to all the games as well. He doesn't just pick the top 3 games and then sell the ticket to somebody else for the other games. In my view, that's a proper supporter. Now, in my view, Sir Jim, that a proper supporter is anyone who supports Manchester United. We're all proper supporters from all around the world. We travel from all over the place. I used to travel from Ireland before I moved over here all the time, and it cost me money, cost me flights, cost me hotels, cost me ticket money, but it was something that I absolutely loved doing. It was a massive part of my life, and that was the reason why I moved here, as I said before. So I would classify myself as a proper supporter. I don't get to many games now, unfortunately, with sort of work commitments and family life. It's very difficult to, and obviously with the price of the tickets not being, going up, which will be revealed soon enough. For all these different multitude of reasons, I can't unfortunately get to the games these days. But I still heavily support this club. It's part of the reason why I started this little challenge, because I absolutely love the club. So to hear Sir Jim kind of talk about supporters in a certain light is very, very frustrating. So yeah, he's obviously not he goes to Chelsea games. He used to go to Chelsea. He's a season ticket holder of Chelsea. But yeah, he's a United fan. Make it make sense to me. Okay, there was a couple other bits. We'll just rattle through these. Sir Jim talks about the youth, and he talks about Menu and Garnacho, and he says no, they won't be sold because of the state of the club and the way it is financially. Their money won't be used to service the debt, and it won't be used to be brought players in according to Sir Jim. So I hope that is the case going forward, because if these players have to be sold on because Rubin doesn't want them, that's different. But if these players are being serviced, if these players are being sold on because he wants to get rid of them to cover costs, then that's on the Glazers, and that can't happen to this club, because this club is built around the youth. And I'm not saying that youth shouldn't be sold on. There's a time and a place for everything. But when they're young and they've got a world of potential, which both these have, they may never kind of get to that particular point, which is fair enough. But they have at the minute. So I'd like to see these kids developed further by Rubin, to the point where Rubin thinks that either they're good enough to stay in the team, or that they're not good enough and that they need to be moved on. And then, okay, there was a little bit finally about Adam Crafton. Adam Crafton writes for the Athletic, and Adam Crafton. So Ratcliffe's latest round of interviews mocking spending on staff, taking an extreme example of the body language expert and making it reflective of an organisation, while having nothing to say about the interest payments caused by the Glazers that are the root problem of Manchester United's financial mess. I think Adam Crafton's really right. Gary Neville never pushed on this. He pushed as much as he could, but I think he's got a relationship with Sir Jim, because they even allude to in the interview the regeneration project, and obviously Gary knows about it because he goes, "You've seen it." Sir Jim Ratcliffe says that to Gary, you've seen it. So I think obviously they are working as a team. They're working together, and I think Gary Neville could only push him so far. And we never quite got to the debt issue and the rising debt, and how there was no way from Sir Jim, there was no kind of talk how we're actually going to get rid of this debt. There is, we aim to, and we've got plans, but there was no this structured manner of how we're actually going to get rid of the debt and help Manchester United go from a club that was never in debt before the Glazers took over to a club that's absolutely crippled by it now. So that's where we are with that. I'm just double checking. I've done everything. Yes, okay. So that is everything to date with me. The only other little bits of information are, as I said, the stadium announcement's going to come out today, and it'll be 100,000 seater brand new stadium, I think, developed by do I have it here? There's a particular architect from Manchester. I can't think of his name. He's going to design it, or he has designed it, I think. Norman something or other. I can't think of his surname. So let's keep news. Let's hear what comes from that. And also, finally, Lenny Yoro is injured. Unfortunately, his boot is in a protective boot, and he is not available for the game on Thursday, which is a massive blow, because it's a game that we need to win. Now, Heaven might come in and do a good job. He did against Arsenal, but he's going to have to start the game probably, unless Harry Maguire's fit and available, which I don't believe he is. I believe he's still out, from news that's coming out of the club. So Heaven may be our final hope, and do we need to hope that the kid has a good game and that he gets through it. We need to support him and pray to God that he doesn't make any mistakes, because it's going to be a tough day for Manchester United, especially Lenny Yoro out now too. Our bloody injury Christ gets worse. Okay guys, I've been rattling on now. I've tried to keep that as short as possible. I really do apologize I've gone over. If you're liking the content, please subscribe. Thank you very much for listening. Please hit the like button. Please share the content if you will. And I will see you either later or tomorrow. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm out.